Hello and welcome back to Season 2 of Church is Stupid.
Comma butt.
I'm Ruth.
I'm Elijah.
And I'm Kate.
And we're really excited about this new season we have going. We took a little bit of a break there, so I'm going to start us off by saying, what'd you do with all of the time that you had away from here?
Raised a child.
That's fair.
Yeah, literally.
That's fair.
What about you,
Kate, you were only on for like one episode,
I
and then
know.
you just got a giant long break.
Exactly. It was
glorious.
really great. Let's see here. I graduated high school.
Yeah, you did.
What else did I do? I got ready for college and I worked a lot. So
You did. Kate, you are an overachiever in like 1.5 billion ways. And yeah, I've just been trying to survive through ordination papers. Dun, dun, dun.
I still have to write your recommendation, don't I?
I would appreciate it. As Bailey said, just write, nah.
Nah, fam.
We good. So yeah, I hope you guys have had a good time away from us, and Elijah's basically become like some weird YouTube star person in the meantime, which is weird. And
Thank you. Yes.
yeah, that's
I've
what
been
I'm calling you now.
Making stupid video game edits on YouTube, and now everyone
true.
knows. And
Well-
now my cheeks are rosy red because I'm so embarrassed.
Your tone is just overwhelming. And so, yes, there are many changes coming to Season 2. I think we have a lot of good content for you. You may have noticed, again, we don't have Andy with us anymore. We still love him dearly. But
He's not dead.
He has gone from us.
He's in a better
gone from
place,
us.
but not like heaven. He's just like somewhere else.
Just anywhere that's not with us.
Yeah.
And we've gained Kate. Yay!
Yeah.
True.
You know, you had so little going on in your life. We had to take you.
I know,
in,
so little.
Give you something to
Graduating from high school, preparing for college. It's
do. And
so
you're
menial.
moving into college tomorrow, correct?
Tomorrow morning. Yep.
So that's an exciting step.
Yeah.
You're living so far from home. I don't know what you're going to do.
Yeah, like what, 2 to 3 miles away? So far.
Just about.
Dang.
So far.
So yeah, today we're
Clear
going
across the
to
road.
Clear- Today we thought we'd kick off our new season with a topic that I'm honestly shocked it took us so long to get to.
Yeah.
But when
I
we
thought the
sat
same
down
thing.
to like talk about all of the topics, honestly most of them I'm like, how did it take us? Why did we never think of this? But we're going to be talking about tattoos, and other body modifications.
Body
I'm
mods
sorry,
is such a funny word to me.
I totally cut
It
you
is.
off.
Sounds like
There you go.
such a futuristic cyberpunk thing, like body mod. But it's not. It's just piercings and stuff. Maybe. Anyways,
We're both just looking at him because
You're
you
so
know,
it's
weird.
a weird term to me. It sounds weird.
this is where
It
Andy
sounds like
needed
it's
to be
something
here
more than
to-
it is.
Yeah.
So that way you guys could.
Have you ever gone to someone and said, "Hey, you have any body mods?" Have you ever said it in that way?
You know, honestly, of all the people that you would ask that question to, I think Kate's the one person I would think might have done that in
Have
her
you?
life.
Actually, okay, then actually have you?
I don't think I've phrased it in that way. No,
I
I've
specifically mean the phrasing.
no, I haven't like asked somebody if they have body mods specifically. I've like looked up body mods using that term, but
I guess
like,
that's fair. I guess that's also probably a weird subject to ask about in that way. Anyways, maybe I
yeah,
should just.
that's kind of one thing that I feel like you don't ask about. It's like an
Hey.
over-asked question.
Hi, nice to meet you. Have
Well,
any body mods?
And I feel like usually you can tell. I mean, not always, but
Yeah.
like, I mean, if you have your ears pierced, that's a body modification. But all of this obviously has some interesting relationships with the church.
Yes.
And that's gone back a really, really, really long time. And I think to understand part of why it was so taboo, and for some people still is so taboo, you have to kind of understand the significance of what piercings, tattoos, or other body modifications really meant to the cultures back in the day, and sometimes even still. And for a long, really in most cultures, if you look, they have some form of tattoos or piercings that has cultural significance among them. I mean, honestly, I think they really say the Jewish tradition is one of the few that didn't have them. It was kind of like an exception. But what they really, like tattoos in particular, were a way of honoring your like ancestors or people who died And so really became associated with like witchcraft and spiritualism and celebrating these other gods. And so if we look at that very fun verse, the one that is the one that people will quote to you to tell you why you can't get tattoos. It is in Leviticus 19. I think it's Leviticus
28.
Thank you. Leviticus 19:28.
Definitely not off the top of my head and
Well,
not
but
on my
since
phone.
you definitely have it on your phone, want to read it for us?
I don't have it on my phone, actually. I just saw the number.
Oh, well,
Well, I guess, okay, here.
then you failed us.
Yeah, okay. Well, that specific verse, it just says, at least in the New International Version, do not cut your bodies for the dead or put tattoo marks on yourself. I am the Lord.
Yep.
That's it.
Woohoo.
Yeah, I mean, that's that one
Super
verse.
exciting. That is literally it. That's it. That's what it says about tattoos. And there's a lot of kind of odd rules, especially in Leviticus, like don't braid your hair or don't wear mixed mixed fabrics.
Stripes and polka dots.
Yeah, it's definitely
Yeah, that's
stripes.
Levitical law,
I've
I'm
broken
pretty sure.
that I've sinned many times. We both know I have no sense of style, Kate. Are
That's
you
so
shocked?
true.
Like,
That's so true.
literally, these pants are longer than my body by a lot. And I'm
Okay, that's
still
because
wearing them.
you're short. I have that same issue, but
true.
that's not a sense of style there. Unless you could roll up the. Okay,
I
we're
will.
getting off
Say,
topic.
yeah,
Sorry.
Totally right. You should roll them up. It's a thing.
But yeah, so making a graven image. So a lot of times what they would do is make a literal image of their loved one somewhere on their body. Like, the cutting open refers to when you get a tattoo. They cut the skin to get the ink to stay. I'm saying this. Kate, do you have a tattoo?
I don't.
You don't. I was gonna say.
don't.
I didn't think you did. Elijah's. So you're the only tatted
I do. I have
person here, Elijah.
one that I got very shortly after I turned 18 because, of course, I did. That's how it goes. So.
I got pierced when I got turned 18 more.
Okay.
But that's my right now. It's kind of my I guess vice. That sounds bad, but piercings are kind of my thing right now. I'm waiting a few years for tattoos. I have ideas, but
It's
not
fair.
quite
I
there.
hear they're addictive. Once you get one, it's hard to stop. I like the stick-on tattoos.
yes,
That's about as far as I go, but not because I don't like them. It's because I get I just put it I'll stick on a tattoo and then I'll be like, ugh, I want something else.
Yeah.
3 days later, and I'm like, well, probably shouldn't put something permanent there because I'm probably gonna want something else.
What about henna? What are your thoughts on henna? Because henna is a form of body mod, a temporary form.
See, when I think of a body modification, I think of a permanent one, personally. I think there's a difference between a temporary anything, and like dyeing your hair then would be a body mod in a sense. Because
Right.
so I don't know that I would put henna in the same
Is there?
category.
Because I know in cultures there's a lot of cultural significance with henna and
Absolutely.
everything. So I think that's where I'm kind of coming from as well. But
Yeah.
Is there any church history that has to do with like being against even like hair dye and stuff? I mean, you mentioned.
know, I don't know, but
I
there is some more very interesting like tattoo history with the church.
Sorry, yeah, sorry.
that's-
You mentioned hair dye, considering it a body mod, and I'm like, I don't know if I've ever. I'm wondering if there's any like deep rooted stuff with that.
I mean, there was rules about not cutting your hair in Leviticus and things like that.
I feel like that would probably just be almost a given then in those sorts of situations.
Right, I feel like if you can't cut it, then maybe you can't. But I really don't know. And now I'm going to have to research. We're going to have to do a whole episode on dyeing your hair now. And then I'm going to find out I'm sinning because I have so much gray hair.
there was, let's see here, according to this website, and I have not seen, looked at how accurate this is, and I just lost it. Where'd it go? There's, at least on the little description thingy on Google, there was something about how hair dyeing was not allowed in a certain religion or something.
I guess it tracks if it just follows the rest of the sort of idea of looking down on like general body mods, especially like anything to do with hair. If you already don't if you already think that it's wrong or immoral or something to cut your hair in certain ways or to do it up in certain ways, I don't know. I feel like hair dyeing would just automatically be lumped into that, right?
I think a lot of the issues that I think I'm seeing on this, at least, are just between the vanity of it, because
That would make
people
more
like trying
sense.
to cover flaws, and like
Yep.
I think a lot of the issues are like all vanity and stuff.
Interesting. Yeah.
Probably
Okay.
the same people who'd be against like makeup and things like that, which
right.
is a whole other topic of interesting. But
No kidding. Yeah.
we can do that some other. See, there is.
'Cause
You
it's-
uncovered a whole new thing, Elijah. This is why we need to talk about
Oh,
this
okay.
before.
So it says in a nutshell, and for the conclusion of this, let's see. Christians should refrain from dyeing their hair because it violates several scriptural principles.
Ooh.
Hair dye rejects God's chosen symbol of righteousness, wisdom, dignity, and honor.
Oh,
And
so
it's an
great hair.
insult to God's artistry and a rejection of his design.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh my! So I'm gonna get to this later because that hits on a point that really is one of my most. You will irritate me quickest if you say this to me, and it's the quoting the "Your body is a temple, therefore you cannot alter it." And I just want to look and be like, "Have you read what they did to Solomon's temple? Like, do you realize how ornate that was? Everything was made out of gold. Well, not everything, but lots of stuff was made out of gold. For Pete's sake, look at any cathedrals in Europe." So, I'll touch more on that later, but it is something that really, it's like, oh, that's one of my
Irking.
least favorite things
Yeah.
that I hear. But so what's interesting about this whole thing, with the cultural significance and with it being so tied to spiritualism outside of the monotheistic Abrahamic faith, was that it was supposed to be something that like set them apart. So the whole purpose of Israel, the people of God, was they were God's chosen people, set apart for him. So part of that was in your physical attributes. One very obvious example of this would be circumcision. That was one of the things that you did. And it was this fell into that. And actually Leviticus 19:28, that verse is the same verse that is used because of the graven image to encourage some of the sects of like Amish to not have their pictures ever taken, which is very interesting because you can't have a graven image of yourself. And it also comes down to vanity, like mirrors and things like that. Sometimes those are also not allowed. But it totally depends on which community
Yeah.
as to how those rules are followed. But what's interesting is there's lots of verses later that talk about God writing something on like their palm, right? Like my word is on your heart, or my word is on your palms. And so there is some scholars who believe that some Jewish people did actually get like scriptures or reminders tattooed on their palms as a way to like remind themselves that they were God's chosen people.
You don't think they just use like Sharpies or something?
Yeah, they probably just ran down to the Walmart real quick,
Yeah.
grabbed a Sharpie and went, "We good."
Yeah. Okay. I guess
Good thought, good thought.
Yeah.
Great question. No bad questions.
Yeah. No, I really appreciate your support. Yeah.
I just can hear him like literally all by myself.
I'm sitting here going, oh yeah, they didn't have Sharpies back then. Oh.
Your question was sarcastic, right? Oh, good, because you started to scare me a little.
This whole bit is ruined.
You started to scare me.
No.
I was good until you're like, "Oh yeah, Sharpies," and I'm like, "Wait, hang on, this was all a joke." You know I'm the oldest one here. I need you to talk me through things
goodness.
sometimes. But anyhow, so that was something. And then one of the other ones that's kind of interesting is there's a verse in later in the New Testament that talks about Jesus having like Son of God or Lamb of God, I can't remember exactly what, tattooed on his thigh, or like written on his thigh. And so some people, you know, there's obviously, was it literal, figurative? I mean, at the end of the day, is it really a statement about a tattoo? No. But it's something interesting that they point to. And as time went on, there was evidence that some of the early Egyptian Christians would do what we do, what more modern Christians do, which is mix tattoos with their Christian faith symbolism. And so there was sort of this development that happened then, which I thought was really interesting because I'd never heard of that before.
Yeah.
Like, it's really common now, you know, you see people who get crosses tattooed, Elijah. And
That'd be me.
or like fish, or you know, the Christian fish, or whatever. Not just a
Bass,
fish.
Just a bass. Yeah. I
Bass
dedicate
Pro
this
Shop.
to my Lord and Savior, Bass Pro Shop tattoo. Oh man.
I done messed up. I did this. This one's on
But
me.
anyways, yeah. Christians,
I'll go
the
grab a
Christian
Sharpie.
tattoo symbolism that is, yeah.
But really, tattoos started gaining much more popularity, it said, around like the 1800s.
Okay.
And now we're coming to a point where I think there's just a part of culture. I feel like it's almost more rare to find somebody who doesn't have a tattoo now, at least around our age or younger. Well, besides kids. You know what I mean?
18 to what are you, 40? No, just kidding.
Young adults.
Wow! Wow! 28, thank you.
I'm sorry. I just had to throw one dig in there.
I think it's, I mean, again, I'm biased because of my comeuppance. I don't think that was the right word. My history with the church. I don't think I used that word right.
comeuppance is
No,
not
that
at
comeuppance is
all
like an
fitting
issue,
in
isn't
that.
it? Isn't that what that means? Like I have a comeuppance or something?
We'll talk after
Okay.
this.
I'm
We're gonna
completely,
deep dive
yeah.
into
I meant
comeuppance.
upcoming, and for some reason I'm like, comeuppance sounds like upcoming. So that's what that means. But I think it is a completely different thing. I'm probably biased because of my upbringing.
Fair.
Being in a non-denominational church that was so focused on youth, it was probably very rare for me to see someone like a young adult that didn't have some sort of tattoo. By the way, comeuppance is a punishment or fate that someone deserves. So yeah, I was completely just mashing words in my brain. It's been a while since we've recorded, and I'm very out of it, and I'm so sorry.
That's all right. This is why this is episode.
This
You're
whole-
like this in normal life, though. You cannot blame that.
Yeah, but now I'm being recorded again
Again?
from the first podcast.
I know. I was just
Yeah.
being. Anyhow, no, you're right.
it
You grew up
landed.
and I grew up with more denominational background, so I feel like I've seen more of a mix. And it's interesting because I feel like the mix that I get now is much less why, like, you can't get a tattoo because it goes against faith, and much more don't get a tattoo because you'll never get a job. I feel like that's the one I've heard more.
Yeah.
And so it's sort of interesting how that, I feel like that's developed. Now there's definitely still, and I was kind of surprised because I was looking up online to see, all right, what is it that people like, what are they going to say to me about why I shouldn't get a tattoo? And there are lots of really mean sites out there, just for the record, that are going to yell at you for wanting to get a tattoo. And yeah, they were not particularly what I would call friendly.
Okay.
I'm trying to see if I can find this was the first paragraph of a site that I found. It was a little like blog about it.
Of course, it's a blog.
A few decades ago, tattoos were sinful in Christianity. Now, as we get closer to the coming of the Antichrist. So this should just tell you where this is heading.
All right.
And more celebrities are getting tattoos all over their bodies. Christians want to follow. Tattoos are a mockery to God, and one of the most ridiculous things ever is they even have Christian tattoo shops, which is actually particularly hilarious to me because that's something we've kind of talked about on leadership. Because we're exploring this whole program. It's called Fresh Expressions, and some of the ways that you can do ministry differently. And one of their biggest examples was a Christian tattoo shop.
That's
So,
very
like,
interesting.
the fact that it was explicitly stated in this, I'm like, oh no. But
Oh, that might be me.
it's us. But it's very interesting how strong people feel about it when they think that it's sinful. And I think part of that comes from, especially that connection to the Antichrist. We see in Revelation the mark of the beast, right? That's one thing. And I think I've heard that the mark of the beast is on every single new technology that has come out since I was born at this point. Like every time there's a new vaccine, every time there's a new anything, I've heard somebody say, this is going to have the mark of the beast, or this is the mark of the beast. Like, have you guys heard that before? Or is that just.
Really, the only thing I've heard it for is like Monster Energy, which is actually a little debatable. But even that.
It has the 666 potentially?
Yeah, something like that. But also, it's called Monster Energy. Like, and if you've seen their marketing style, they're purposefully edgy. You know, so I wouldn't doubt it, but I don't know if that necessarily means that Satan played his part in creating that brand. Maybe it was just someone saying, hey, we want to make an energy drink that's edgy, has the name Monster. This is a cool logo, and also it's like the mark of the beast, or it's 666. Whoa, guys. But I don't know.
If you ever saw me drink a Monster Energy drink, then you might change your tune. You might say it's the mark of the beast.
I'm scared now.
It was made. They made it for you specifically.
I drank Monster one time in high school on a band trip, and I was
no.
told I was never allowed to ever again, and I haven't.
I can imagine that for sure.
Yeah, it was not a good experience for anybody, I don't think. I mean, I had a great time, but it's interesting to me the way that these symbolisms, and especially going back and looking at the intent behind that scripture and the laws of Moses and why they were there, it was really that set apart situation. And culturally, to not be so focused on their ancestors being the one who like looked after them, right? Which was a very common practice back in the day, to not be focused on.
Oh, you mean like, I'm sorry. You mean like the idea of like dead ancestors watching over them,
Yeah.
you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, like literally that sense.
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry.
To have one God, all of those things were so unique to that particular culture. And tattoos also really can be dangerous if you don't have clean needles, right? Mm-hmm. Like there's a high risk of infection and things like that. And back in the day, they didn't really have good sanitizing techniques. And so getting a tattoo would be a much higher, I would say it would be a much higher risk than now. Where you go to a nice sanitized store, they make sure that they do all of the I don't know. I've never
probably
gotten a
more
tattoo,
of.
so.
I mean, I can imagine that the whole process would be much more like robust and like ritualistic. Mm-hmm. You know, instead of what it is now, like going into a shop to like to receive a service. I mean, back then, I would imagine it would be almost be like I said before, like almost a ritual or something too, right? It
was more of that. And as this basically came back up in the 1900s and as now tattoos have become more and more popular, they started to be associated with rebellion and with this sort of mentality of becoming worldly and needing to stake your claim or something like that. I don't know. There was lots of weird reasons behind that I feel like it's one of those things that just made people uncomfortable because it was different. Is that fair?
Yeah, I was actually thinking about. I didn't know how to really form the question, but I'm just curious in regards to this stigma against tattoos that has, I think, faded away a certain amount, but is still present, you know, in certain denominations. Maybe I was just curious if you think that maybe some of that stigma is almost equally attributed to just like the general, you know, Western us versus them Christianity kind of like thought process, just as much as it is contributed to actually barely being in the Bible.
Well, absolutely. And especially if we look again at as Israel as the set apart people, it's really easy for us to be like, we're the set apart people. We need to look different. So this is how we need to look different.
Yeah. How many times have you heard, you know, this comparison between being of God and being of the world?
Yep.
You know, and that, I mean, I feel like that mentality is still pretty present, and you can kind of throw anything that you want into the second category. You know what I mean? The world category, the flesh, or whatever you want to call it.
Well, and it's really interesting because all of this about tattoos, if we look at like piercings, some of them have the same stigma and some don't. Like if you, I am an anomaly because I don't have my ears pierced and I never have. Like I just never got them done, wanted to play soccer and was like, there was never enough time for them to heal. So I just didn't ever get them done.
Yeah.
And it's really common. I mean, people get their kids or their daughters usually ears pierced as infants. It's like that is also kind of a cultural thing. And yeah, that's totally okay. But then stuff like belly button piercings or, gauging, things like that, people are like, what?
Yeah.
How could this possibly happen? And just as the fun fact of the day that you didn't want, the only piercing I have ever had is a belly button piercing. So you're welcome for that random tidbit of information. But I remember
can't say the same, but
it's fair. Well, when I got it done in college after a bad breakup, as one does, and it was interesting as I was picking out. Like I went to the mall and was just looking at different ones. They asked me, "Oh, you're in college. What do you do?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm studying to be a pastor." And they were like, "So you might be the coolest pastor I've ever met." And me and cool don't go in the same sense
that
ever.
is so true.
So, right? So I was like, yeah, getting my cool points. But it was so interesting that it was like baffling for this person that a pastor would be picking out a belly button piercing. And maybe for some of you guys who are listening, that is kind of like taboo. But it always leads me to that question of why. Why is it that some of that is okay and some of it isn't? Why is it okay to get your ears pierced and make that permanent body modification, but it's not okay to get a tattoo or pierce your belly button or...
Well, especially when you're saying, why is it okay and not okay in the eyes of God?
Exactly.
And not just
like
okay with your own taste, right?
Because you could easily use a lot of those same scriptures, like your body is a temple. Okay. So if your body's a temple and you shouldn't alter what God has given you, how can you get your ears pierced? Because that is an alteration.
Yeah.
But it's one that's become culturally accepted.
How many, I'll say it very bluntly, how many like middle-aged, white Christian men or women talk about how it's not okay for you to get tattoos because it's wrong in the eyes of the Lord while they're wearing earrings? When both of those things are hand in hand in the same ye olde Bible verse. Unless they try to play off that the Levitical thing doesn't apply, but like you said, the mark of the beast is any kind of tattoo. Obviously, that's what that means. It's...
Well, and again, it's just the same thing. Like, where's the difference with hair dye? Where's the difference with makeup? Where's the who's drawing these lines? And I'm a big firm believer in if you're gonna say God is saying something, you make sure that that's really what's happening.
Yeah.
And so I think that's all the time we have for this particular episode, diving into some of the history behind this particular issue. But check in with us on Thursday, and we're going to be talking more about our opinions.
Ooh.
You're welcome. I know you want them.
They're so valuable.
I am valuable. So just a reminder, if you're looking for us, you can find us on YouTube, on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Anchor, and so many more that I never remember. And you can also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. And from all of us here at Church is Stupid,
comma butt.
I'm Ruth.
I'm Elijah.
And I'm Kate.
And we hope you have a great week.